Hello, everyone. Welcome to Roll for Combat Live. I'm Mark Seifter, the director of game design at Roll for Combat, and with me is Evan Diaz, the creator of Nimble RPG.
Hey.
So today we're here to talk to you about a bunch of things, but the one that you want to hear about first, because you clicked on the weird picture of the angry baby that was on the thumbnail, is about the quote about nerd baby rage from one of the lead developers on Overwatch, and whether or not it applies to the D&D community, the tabletop RPG community, and if so, how. So to get us started, I want to go into what this dude actually said. It was fairly incendiary, but it was also fairly specific. When you get in your head nerd baby rage, you might be thinking about a lot of things. You might be thinking about people who get mad about the balance of the game or balance changes that are happening in a game. You might get thinking about people who played a game for a while, got angry, bounced off the game, and now are major haters of the game. But he specifically, this is Jeff Kaplan, former director of Overwatch, was talking about a very specific thing. So he said, as a game developer, you can't make a game for every single player they all want to participate in. Some people just don't want to play this. There's a lot of weird anger from the Overwatch community about this game. Some of them are in love with it. It's like a Venn diagram. There's the people who are like, I love that game, but I also love what these people are trying to do, and I can play that. And there's some of these people who are like, I don't want to play that game, and I'm like, yeah, then don't play it. It's cool. No one's putting a gun to your head to play the game. You do you. The fact you want to play Overwatch is amazing. I love that. That's awesome. I hope you want to play World of Warcraft, Diablo 2, Hearthstone, Rust, 7 Days to Die. Play the game that makes you happy. But the weird, I got a nerd rage out because that's what the internet trained me to do. I want to talk about my view on nerd rage. It's one thing if you're playing a game. Let's say I'm playing a game. In that game, you have paladins and warlocks. I play a paladin. They nerf the paladin, and I get upset. And I voice my opinion because I love the game, and I'm bummed my paladin is nerfed. Okay, so he says, yeah. I can understand that a little bit. But I never understand anyone being hostile about it or being rude. But I understand being upset and voicing your opinion. But if a game comes out and you don't even want to play it, you've never played it, here's where he gets a little spicy, and that made the article headlines that people are talking about. He says, shut the F up. No one cares. We don't need to hear that you aren't into it. What is with this? Oh my God. I'm so upset they decided to make this game I have no interest in. I'm not running to the internet every time there's a TV show on. But who cares about my opinion if I'm not going to play it? If I've never played it, why does my opinion matter on that? So if you play it, great. You have an informed opinion, good for you. But there needs to be a little bit more spread the love, a little bit less I freak out and I baby rage and therefore get upvotes or whatever. The echo chamber is kind of insane. As someone on the receiving end, I know in my life I've given it out at times. I've also been on the receiving end of a lot of nerd baby rage. And there's the quote. That is specifically what he was talking about. So, Evan, what do you think? Is this something that's more of a video game phenomenon, or do we see this in the tabletop sphere as well?
I don't know that I've seen it in the tabletop sphere. Like the worst stuff that I've seen is someone will make a video about this game, and then the comments of it, play this game instead. Like that's sort of as spicy as I've seen things get. I get it. Getting angry and bent out of shape about something that you don't play, that is a little bit infantile. That maybe you don't have the self-control that you should have. But yeah, I don't think it's that common in the tabletop scene. What do you think?
Yeah, so I do think you're right. There are people who, when they hear about a certain game, they say, well, no, not that game. How about this game instead? They may even disparage the first game, but a lot of those people actually have often played both games.
Yeah.
In the tabletop sphere, because in the tabletop sphere, there's kind of two large subcategories of players, and there are others beyond this, but these are the two most common. The most common is they've only ever played Dungeons and Dragons, and that is it. Second most common, they've played a whole bunch of different games, and they're just likely to have played a lot of games. They probably have played both games that are being talked about here. And so the people who only play Dungeons and Dragons, to them, the other games are at worst like a gnat that's buzzing around. And it doesn't bother them. It's just a gnat. It's out there, and they just don't care. And the only thing that they might not like is if other people tell them to play other games, and they're like, please stop. You've told me to play other games a ton of times. I don't want to. I want to play D&D. That's my game. Which almost, this guy's comments, Jeff Kaplan comments, Jeff Kaplan probably be happy because he was like, I want people to know the game that they love and just play that and stop complaining about the other games is what he was saying. He'd almost be happy with that scenario. Now, I'd rather that people would more engage with more different games. I think that's good. But I think that tabletop RPG players who dislike games are usually players who have played the game, and they may have actually loved it before and then fallen out of love, or maybe they played it a little and bounced off of it. I think that's way more common.
Yeah, I think there's more inertia to tabletop games also, because it's not just like me, all right, I'll just close this game and I'll open up another game. It's like, no, I've got to convince like 4 or 5 of my friends to like all learn a new game. And a lot of people like, I don't have time to learn a new game. Like this one has some rough edges or whatever, things we don't like, but we all know how to play it.
100%.
So I think there's more inertia.
Yeah. So I think that's true. And I think that the other thing that is also true about tabletop RPGs compared to video games is that it's less common that like your favorite tabletop RPG developer or whatever puts out another tabletop game later, and then you feel like, no, I just want them only to be doing my tabletop game. That's I mean, there are many companies that make multiple games, but I don't usually see somebody be like, well, why is Free League focusing on this other game? They should do only Vesson all the time, or something like that.
What's all this alien stuff? You know, all these other games. Yeah, I don't think people in the tabletop industry like really see each other as competition so much as like colleagues. I've actually had people tell me that, like, oh no, like 2 different games, like, no, we're not a competition. Like, yeah, let's talk shop. Let's chat. We'll hang out. We'll talk about design stuff and nerd out about how this ability is worded or our favorite mechanics or whatever. Like, we'll just sort of talk shop, and it's really not like, it's not a zero-sum game, I don't think.
I agree. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that we in the tabletop community are paragons of civility, okay? I mean hopefully Evan and I might be, hopefully. But I have been in the tabletop community long enough to know there is some real outrage there. It'll happen around edition shifts. It'll happen like between games that are close to each other that people think that their favorite one is the best one. It'll happen with nerfs or errata that adjust things, kind of like Jeff Kaplan talked about in the quote where the paladin gets nerfed and then players of paladins get really upset. And I understand that for tabletop games too, because like your character in a tabletop game is almost a part of you and your own personality. So when they get really nerfed, or especially if something changes that like breaks the build of the character so that it just you can't even do the thing that you were doing before. Even maybe if the thing you were doing before was unfairly overpowered, but that it was also tied to the lore of your character, and now you actually just, it literally doesn't work and you have to do something else. I can see why people are getting mad at that.
But the thing with like, so like I played a lot of World of Warcraft back in the day. So like if Blizzard changes a thing, then like everybody has to just do that. But like if Wizards of the Coast changes something, like I still have my 2014 books. Like we just play it at my table however I want. So I don't need to get as upset about it because like this is my own game, and like my DM or my GM has probably already told me like, no, Evan, that's a busted combo. Don't do that here. Like, oh, okay. It's like what the company is doing like is almost irrelevant to me in a tabletop space, because like, one, we're probably already homebrewing a bunch of stuff anyway. It's sort of like our game and it's not Hasbro's game that we're playing, or whoever else's game. So I think that's one of the key differences. Like it doesn't really matter what the companies are doing, because like we could just do whatever we want at our table, because it's not software. It's like I've got a DM there I could just talk to and say like, hey, instead of that rule, let's do this instead. And everybody says, everybody like that? Yeah, okay. Oh, we'll just do that.
I think that the aspect of game designer and specifically of GM and sometimes the table working together with the GM as mini game designers at every table changes this dynamic a lot. It actually can mean that sometimes somebody who doesn't want to play your game and never would want to play your game might actually have something to say that's more valuable than they would in the video game space as well, just ironically. But it also, to your point, Evan, absolutely means people who are very actively playing with a specific group are pretty likely not to care as much about even these kind of changes. Now, however, if we wanted to create our corollary, and it's not the same thing Jeff Kaplan talked about, because he talked about people who didn't even play the game at all. If we were looking at who is threatened by the changes that are in the book, there is a category of person who is, and they do sometimes come online to complain. It's not you, Evan, who have your group and you're going to discuss it and do the thing with your character. It's the person who does not have a stable, reliable group, but maybe
Yep.
they have a character either because it's organized play or because it's like a strong character concept that they played in a game that died and they want to keep playing it somewhere else, or they had it and they haven't never gotten to play it yet. And they have an investment in the general online consensus about whether or not to use the new thing or not, with the idea that the new thing almost by default is since it's what the company put out, is going to win if they don't come on there and like defend the old way of doing things.
Yeah, no, that's really good point, actually. Yeah, people who rely on like public games, the public is sort of going to drift toward like whatever the authority is saying, I guess. Yeah, so that's a really good point. But I think the difference, like another key difference, is that with video game design, like you can't just like play a video game and like, all right, I'm gonna design my own. Like you have to go to school, learn programming or modeling or animation. You have to like there's a huge barrier to entry. But like once you read once you read like a couple of like RPG books, like yeah, I pretty much get it. I'm gonna make my own monsters. I'm gonna make my own so everybody is sort of a designer already. So like if something is changed, like no, we'll just do this instead. Like it's easy. It's a lot more democratized, I think, so that I think people just tend to get less bent out of shape because if they say, oh, your proficiency bonus is this instead of that, like, nah, I'll just keep it this. Or like this ability's a busted, just don't choose that subclass. And we can we can self-patch things. I think that's how like most of the designers in the TTRPG space started off, just like homebrewing stuff and making stuff and then sharing it with other people. And then like, oops, like, yeah, I got hired to do a project now, and now this is my job. So I think it's just a lot more democratized, where people have the power to be able to do it without having to like get a 4-year degree and practice and apprenticeship somewhere. So
yeah, everyone's a mini game designer. And yes, it's easy for us to say, having both designed tabletop role-playing games ourselves. But even if you haven't designed Nimble RPG or Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you who are watching this, who've GM'd your own game, who have created a new monster to put into your game, or a new magic spell, or any of those kind of elements, you are a mini game designer. You don't have to have created an entire game system or revamped and house ruled massive amount of things to be one. In most types of games, everyone would easily acknowledge that, even if you didn't realize until watching this video that you were. In most video games, if like somebody like made like a new gun for a first person shooter, and like made a mod that introduced a new gun that they and their friends were using, like everyone would agree that they were, obviously an amateur game designer, since they just put out the mod and were not hired to do it, but that they were designing for that game. But a lot of GMs don't realize that they are designing, even if it's not like deep and really systemic design.
Yeah. Like you start off, you like read the adventure, whatever the starter adventure you're running, and they're like, this is weird. I'm gonna say this instead. Or like my table doesn't like spiders. We're having mushroom people are attacking the party instead. So like you just start crafting the game into what you like and what your table likes, and like the floodgates sort of open. And then like maybe you're just a player, and after like 2 or 3 times of playing, like, oh hey, can I try? Like let me be the GM. And it's easier for certain games than others, but I really like that aspect of it, where it's not like only these people can do the designing and make things, and we just have to yell at them to get them to do what we want. It's like, well, if they're not listening, like, Yeah, we'll just make Pathfinder. We'll just make a new game. We'll just make our own subclasses. I'll release Heliana's Guide to whatever, just I'll just make my own thing, and it has the stuff that I want. Instead of yelling at Wizards of the Coast, make Pokemon, but for D&D, like I'll just do it, and then you can. But like you can't do that with World of Warcraft. I'm gonna make some new class. Like nope, Blizzard won't let you.
It's their walled garden, and you cannot play in it. And so
Yep.
it matters.
Yep.
It matters a lot. And, Jeff Kaplan was talking about the company makes an entirely new game. But this could also be true, like, within a game where it's not your paladin being nerfed, but even just, like, let's say World of Warcraft adds a new class that you hate. This is the same kind of sentiment that Kaplan was talking about, but where it's like, it's a class that's not for you, that you're never going to play, and those people will get mad. Not because they were going to play it, but because of the opportunity cost, that it was not a class that they would have liked that could have been added instead. And I think that that's what really opportunity costs in the space is what leads to what he termed as the nerd baby rage in his quote, and that the opportunity cost is less for tabletop RPGs because, as we've said, it's democratized. Everyone at the table is a GM. You could theoretically make it yourself if you're not playing an organized play or you're not in some situation where it's official or bust. You could even just make a third-party product and launch it. You can just put it out there sometimes. Like, I've written my own stuff and gotten my GMs to let me play the things that I published before because they judge everything based on whether they think it's balanced. There have been things that were in books I worked on for Paizo that my GM was like, no. I was like, come on. I worked on this. I think it's fine. Paizo published it too. Everyone thought it was fine. They're like, no, this just seems a little bit too much. We can have it, but it'll be nerfed a little bit. And there have been things I published myself that they're just same GM is like, no, that seems all right. And so it just depends on your group and your situation.
Yeah. Like RPG design, it's just text on a page. So like you don't have to go through modeling and texturing and animation and voiceover. You don't have to do all that stuff. So you can iterate really, really quickly. Like I've ran games where like, hey guys, we're trying this new rule, and like immediately like, ooh, this rule sucks. Okay, all right guys, forget that rule. We'll go back to how we were doing it. And it's really quick to iterate and like you get this immediate feedback at the table. So
especially if you have a group who's good with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I get not every group is cool with that, but yeah, nerd baby rage I think is, I don't think that's a tabletop concern too much.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Specifically with the Kaplan definition of nerd baby rage that was in that article. Every fandom has their own rages and anger and nerd rage, and tabletop has a type of nerd rage, but not the Kaplan nerd baby rage. It's very, very rare. Because of just the weird topography and landscape of tabletop RPGs in terms of how dominant D&D is, combined with, as you said, Evan, the democratization. So I think we've solved that mystery. But we talked a lot about game design and democratization of game design as we were going through, and I kind of want to dig more in on some game design stuff because Evan was talking to me before the stream a little bit about some game design questions that he wanted to ask. So let's get into that too while you're watching everyone here.
Yeah. So you're the Pathfinder expert. So what is the formula or the process that you go and you guys publish stuff in for 5e and Pathfinder?
We do.
What's the process taking things? Do you start designing with Pathfinder? Is that like your native language?
We found that it is easier to design something in Pathfinder and then move it to 5e. And I suspect that it in the same way it would be much easier to design something in Pathfinder and then move it to Nimble than it would be to design it in Nimble and move it to Pathfinder. Obviously, this varies from person to person. If you are Evan Diaz, the creator of Nimble, maybe it's easier for you to design anything in Nimble and move it to another side because of your special like character buffs that you have in the create Nimble skill. But for most people who are thinking of making in multiple RPGs, it's easier to design in the RPG where the thing you're designing is more feature rich. And feature rich does not necessarily mean better. It just means that it has more stuff that has to be in there. Because of the fact that it's generally easier to be inspired by the features you see in the feature-rich thing and pick and choose the best ones when you're making, let's say, a monster in a simpler system than it is to take a very feature-light thing. Like if you look at a D&D monster, let's look at the owlbear, right? So the D&D owlbear, like, what, it has multi-attack?
Yeah, I don't think it does a whole lot. Let me see.
It has multi-attack. Maybe in 2024 it got to do more things. It's been a little while since I used this example, so...
Yeah, multi-attack makes 2 rend attacks, and rend is 2d8 plus 5.
Okay, cool. So that's the D&D owlbear, all right? Now, I'm going to go into the Pathfinder 2e owlbear. Okay? So, the Pathfinder 2e owlbear has a talon and a beak. It has a blood-curdling screech for 1 action that it can do while also doing its other stuff, which terrifies its prey and frightens them. It has a gnaw for 1 action. When a creature is grabbed in its talons, it can disembowel them so it can feed their organs to its young. And it sickens them. And it has a grab, of course, which it can use to get to the gnaw. It's on the talon. And it has a screeching advance that is 2 actions where it just screeches and does that 1 action screech we were talking about while moving twice so they can get towards people. And it counts everywhere that it was walking during the movement for the radius to determine who was close enough to hear the screech.
That's a lot.
So, if you think about it, it would be a lot easier to go from this Pathfinder 2 monster to a 5e monster. And not only that, I submit that the 5e monster that you would have at the end of that process would probably be better than the D&D 24 owlbear is as well.
Yeah, at least more interesting. Yeah, so
Sorry,
I find
that's
it
what I mean.
find it easy. Yeah, no, I'm agreeing. I find it easier, like, if you have a list of like 20 cool ideas, it's a lot easier to like pare that down into like 3 cool ideas versus like if you had just like 3 cool ideas, like, all right, now we have to fill out this much space, like. Yeah, that's going to be a lot harder.
Exactly.
So, no, yeah, that does make sense why you
and you not only have to fill out the space, you have to be faithful. You have to know that you're being faithful to the initial concepts with those new abilities. They can't be something that drifts off. They can't be something that distracts from it. But if the monster inherently had all these things that work together in a tapestry of abilities, it's easier to simplify out and take away some of those and just be like, okay, so I'm doing Nimble. So instead of having all of these options that it has here, I want to make one simple loop that it has that it's just going to do every time automatically, so it's easier for the GM to run. So I will just, like, if I'm going to make a Nimble Pathfinder 2 owlbear, I would just like be like, okay, it's always going to do its screeching movement. Instead of screeching advance, it screeches while it's moving, and then bites and tries to gnaw on their intestines, and then that's it. It does that. That's its thing every turn. And that maybe I should simplify it even more than that. But my first step that I would do is to get it into that sort of position and look to see, is that simple enough now? It definitely keeps all the plot beats that were in the owlbear before. Maybe for its level, it's doing too much in terms of debuffs on the opponents, so I might look to change it, but it gives me a good easy starting point, like almost immediately.
It's like if you have like a big hedge that you need to like trim, like you could trim it in just a few seconds, but like to grow the hedge or the tree like takes a lot longer.
You're absolutely right.
Where it says owlbear, it says owlbear creature 4. Is 4 the level? So like I know very little about Pathfinder.
4 is the level of the creature.
Is like a level 4 PC, level 4 hero in Pathfinder equal to like a level 4 creature? Is that approximately what it is?
Yes. Unlike in D&D, where a CR4 is like supposedly stronger, but it also a level 4 creature is a creature of the same level is considered in encounter building wise to be the equal of a character of that level. In reality, a creature of that level tends to have just ever so slightly better statistics, and their important statistics.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, though, it depends on the class that the player character has, and not in terms of damage. Player characters can usually put out significantly more damage than the monster can, but
Okay.
the monster might have just like a little bit better accuracy and AAC. But then it lacks the variety of options the players have. Even this monster, which has like 4 things that it can do, that's all that it can do. Players might have feats and a scroll in their pocket with some other thing. And then players' characters usually put out significantly better damage than the monsters do. Not always. It depends on your class. Obviously, if you're a wizard attacking with a sword, you will not. But even a monster's high damage, is about the same as like a wizard wielding a great sword a lot of the time. A wizard who up their strength. You know, they're not completely outrageous about doing this.
So it's a bit asymmetrical. So the monsters, they have more hit points and fewer, like they're able to soak up more damage and output a little bit less, and heroes are a little bit the opposite.
So they actually, their output is pretty good, because even though they do less in a hit than the player characters do, who are like a barbarian or something like that, their accuracy ensures that they're more likely to hit, and in Pathfinder 2, a hit by 10 or more is a crit. So they're more likely to crit, but their crits are like less obscene than when the player character crits.
So what is a crit? So with this I'm looking at stat block now. Talon plus 14.
Yes. So let's say we did Talon plus 14, and you rolled a 17, and that's a 31. 17 plus 14 is 31. So let's say my armor class was 20. You've crit because you hit me by at least 10. A natural 20.
So what do you do now?
So now we are going to double that damage. So instead of 1d10 plus 6, we're going to do, which is like 11.5 on average. We'll say I rolled a 12. I rolled a 6 on the d10. We're going to do 24. Now, a player character at level 4 might have been able to do a lot more than 11 damage on a hit, or 12.
So you would roll 1d10, add 6, and then double the total.
Double the total result. Absolutely.
Okay, so you wouldn't roll 2d10 plus 12. Okay.
Now, the book says that you're allowed to do that if you really want to, since they average to the same, but the default is to just roll it in double, because you don't need to count as many dice.
Gotcha. Okay. So is it common for a lot of monsters in Pathfinder to have like more than one die for damage?
Yes. In fact, it's actually I would say the owlbear is maybe not as maybe not as common as some of the at level 4 and above monsters often have 2 dice. The owlbear does have very large dice, which is part of why, and it has a bunch of other abilities, which is part of why it only has 1. But monsters starting at level 4 often have multiple dice. So
in Pathfinder goes to level 30. So
player characters go to level 20.
Oh, okay.
Opponents, like, it would hardly be useful to have an opponent that was above level 25 in most cases, because it is a game of doubling every 2 levels. By which I mean, every 2 levels, you are considered to be twice as strong as you were before. And what that means is, if you had something that was above level 25, like let's say level 26, it would be like as strong as theoretically 8 level 20 PCs, which is maybe more strong than you need it to be. Now, obviously, there can be issues when you're a solo up against a lot of people that can do annoying things to you. And so you probably might be able to beat a level 26 if you did exactly the right thing with your 4 level 20 PCs. But most things don't go above level 25 for the monsters and level 20 for the players.
Okay, that makes sense. So like a level 6 creature is going to be as strong as 2 level 4 things?
That's right. And that's how the encounter builder works as well. And so what you're suggested to do is to build an encounter, the hypothetically ideal, like, severe encounter, which is like the hardest one you should use other than the ones for boss fights. Like in Nimble, there was a category where it's just like, use this only for sparingly for boss fights, and then there was another one that I can't remember the names of them in Nimble, where you were just like, don't use this almost at all, but maybe if your group is really, really tactical. And so we have one called Extreme that is like the one that says just only use this for boss fights. And Extreme is basically like, oh, you're 4 level 4 PCs, face 4 level 4 owlbears. That's Extreme. Like the evil adventuring party that's opposite of you. Or 1 level 8 monster. Although the game suggests that a singleton is going to always be swingier in one way or the other than 4. And so the highest that is ever suggested to face is severe, which would be 4 level 3s.
Okay, so like if you're running an encounter, so like 5 level 5 players.
Okay.
Like would you be able to like just make an encounter like off the top of your head, or
I can do that immediately. If you want a severe boss encounter, not like campaign ending boss, just a severe boss encounter. Boom. How about 5 level 4s? That's my top suggestion, but. No, you might not want to do exactly that. So what about a level 6 who has 3 level 4 lieutenants?
So you just go down 1 level. You go down.
What I did was I combined the 2 of the 4s into a 6. There's other ways to do it too. There's a numerical formula to do that, but I created those formulas. I didn't do everything in Pathfinder 2, but those formulas I created, and I can do them in my head. So I was just like, we can do a 6 with 3 level 4s as their lieutenants. Those can be a lot of fun because there's one more important guy. So your people who have things where they're like a ranger and I'm going to hunt my prey. I'm going to pick the big one. Or someone can pick them. The wizards can use their AoE to blast the little guys and clear them out or debuff them and get them out of the fight. And you can do things like that.
Okay, yeah. So instead of like all the monsters are here, like one monster is here, and the rest are like a little bit down, and you have like a cool landscape encounter. That's neat.
You have lots of different ways you can build it around like that. And if you're wondering how can you double empower every 2 levels, that seems very difficult.
I'm looking at the damages. Damage isn't doubled. It doesn't look like.
It certainly isn't. So the fact of the matter is, ever since 3rd edition D&D, a lot of the editions of D&D and Pathfinder have attempted to claim that difficulty of creatures double every 2 levels, but they've usually not been correct because of a variety of factors. It's just very difficult to do that. Damage is not even nearly doubling, right? And if you're looking at level 4 maybe, but by level 16 to 18, the damage of going up 2 levels is only a little bit more. It's not even close to doubling. It's actually linear.
Is it the accuracy of it?
That's part of it. So what it is, are you familiar with the idea of using like a Taylor polynomial in calculus to like approximate a really weird, like a higher order function?
No. Yeah. Walk me through it.
You can basically use like a combination of smaller order function, like a polynomial, like 3x squared plus 2x plus 1, or not exactly those numbers, to try, if you put enough polynomials into it and have an infinite series, you could approximate an exponential, like something that doubles over time. And so what is happening in Pathfinder is that it is a sort of a combination of linear changes that when you multiply them together creates an approximation of an exponent that happens to work at the local points where the game is being played. So your damage is going up. Let's say your damage went up, and people have noticed that at lower levels, the single strong monster actually is above its weight class, and at higher levels, the single strong monster is very weak in comparative, just a little bit. Whereas at the middle, it's all just kind of around the same. And this is because whenever you approximate an exponential with a non-exponential, it's never a perfect approximation, and those edges are
all
showing.
Of the little divergences sort of accumulate here and accumulate there.
It's especially because of the damage. In fact, the one that you were looking at, you intrinsically, damage and hit points, you intrinsically found the place where the cracks show. Because damage is the thing where the proportion of damage as it goes up, if you're using a linear damage scale, is most different at like level 1 to 2 versus level 19 to 20. But if we think about the damage going up by a certain percent, let's say you do 25% more damage when you're 2 levels higher. Let's say you're at a range where that happens. But if I'm 2 levels higher and my accuracy goes up, let's say that I when I was at the lower level that I hit on a 10. That's a pretty common number to hit on sometimes back in a D&D type game. I know in Nimble you're only going to miss if you roll that 1. But if I would have hit on a 10 at the low level, well, with a weaker monster, that is going to have 11 numbers on the dice that hit, and only the natural 20 is a crit. Not just because I hit by 10, but also because a natural 20 increases it by 1 step automatically. So I have a total expectation when I roll that d20 of delivering about 12/20ths of my damage. Because I have 10 chances to hit for full and 1 chance to hit for double. But if I got 2 more accuracy from leveling up by 2, actually, if I level up by 2, I really probably get 3 accuracy if you look at the tables. What that does is it actually increases my damage by 50%. And that sounds like maybe shocking that getting 3 accuracy would increase my damage by 50%, but let's think about it. So we had before 10 chances to do full damage and 1 chance to do double, which is 12/20ths. We've now added 3 more chances to do full damage, but we also added 3 more chances to do double because we can hit by 10 or more on a 19, 18, or 17. So we've gone from 12/20ths to 15/20ths from the 3 more numbers that hit, 9, 8, and 7, to 18/20ths because of the 3 more crits. And 18 is 1.5 times of 12. So we actually increased our damage by 50% from the accuracy. We increased it, let's say, by 20% from the other thing. So that means now our damage isn't quite double, but our staying power has also increased for our hit points and our armor class. And when you factor in the combination of damage, the combination of staying power, and then the weakness of not having twice as many actions, because you are easier to like mislead with like movement or like tripping them or something like that, you roughly approximate a double. So it's actually a very difficult process.
The owlbear went from plus 14 and like a lamia at level 6 goes to plus 17. So so 3
That's
more.
3 more. Like, it's not always exactly
maybe a
3,
little bit more. Yeah. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. So how do it's like with Pathfinder Adventures, like you're playing a campaign and there's like this boss stat block at the end. Is that stat block like balanced, expecting like 4 players or 5, like a certain number of players?
So a lot of written Pathfinder adventures default to 4, and the game now. To be clear, the written adventures don't always follow the advice that the game design book says to do. But the game,
of course not.
The way the game design book says to handle adding more creatures on it. Many adventures don't tell you what to do if you're adding extra characters or reducing them. Some of them do, like organized play, just naturally because it's a pickup group and you don't know how many people are in it. They do that. Release the Kraken, which we published at Roll for Combat, had clear notes on what to do in every encounter. But the recommendation of the book is that if you have this boss and it was written for a 4-person party, and let's say it's like an evil mage who holds their evil spell book and attacks you with spells, it is recommended if you had like say 6 people, even though the XP budget would go up because 6 is 1.5 times of 4. So it would say you could make that wizard 1 level higher. You can. The XP system will let you do that. With 8 players, you could go 2 levels higher. It will let you do that. The book says, please don't do that. Because the more that you add more and more players to the group and more levels to the monster, you're creating a swingy situation where the opponent is going to annihilate you with AoE that hits everybody and wipes you out because you all critically fail in the same way that you can critically hit by failing by 10 or more, and then you just take double damage and blow up. Or you're just going to completely action economy wipe this thing because you have 24 actions and they only have 3. So the book suggests that instead maybe the wizard like animates their spell book and it comes to life as a weaker creature and shooting out smaller spells and is floating around attacking you or something like that. Spread out the extra XP budget. But basically you get an XP budget of 1/4 sort of the 4-person amount per extra player that's added. And you add those monsters, but you don't give more XP to the party for it because, well, you're splitting it. I mean, you don't have to do any division. Yeah, exactly. Just for balance. You don't have to do any division because we didn't create it like that where you add up a higher amount and then divide by the party members because no one likes to do
Yeah, you don't wanna do
division
that.
in their game. They don't want to do math. So instead, you add an extra creature with 30 XP, but you still give the same amount of XP to the party so nobody has to divide any numbers.
Are there and this is becoming the Pathfinder interview, so I apologize.
No, I think that people in the audience probably are enjoying this. Let me, I can check. Ask me. People,
Yeah.
Pathfinder players. There's nothing that the Pathfinder community loves more, as far as I can tell, than people who play other games that are curious and interested and want to hear about Pathfinder because they want to tell you about Pathfinder. And I am part of the they, so maybe we want to tell you about it.
So like, is there in 5e there's like legendary actions where like the boss can like do things between turns to sort of even out, so it's not like my turn I kill everybody in one hit, or like if you all go first you all kill me before I can act. So like that sort of helps even stuff out. Is there something equivalent or similar in Pathfinder?
So in Pathfinder, a lot of opponents have reactions, and some of them get more than one. And so it's kind of like what 5e wound up doing in 2024, where they just turned everything into reactions, I guess. Because I actually liked legendary actions in D&D. I thought they were cool for exactly the reason you said, but they kind of moved away from it in 2024. I also like layer actions a lot. Layer actions is just something that Pathfinder 2e has suggestions about adding environmental elements, has suggestions about adding complex hazards into your, or simple hazards, like traps and stuff into your encounters. But I think, personally, even though ironically they got rid of it in 2024, that by giving it the name of layer action, like in Rumpelstiltskin, knowing the name gives you power over something, giving it a specific name, they increase the chances of people actually following that advice and doing it, compared to in Pathfinder, where you can, just people don't do it as much.
For me, it was hard for me to remember, like, okay, this monster can do these 5 or 6 things, and then at the top of the round, layer action, and then like between these 2 turns, he does this other thing. It's like it was hard for me to remember all of that. So like I would never run them properly. So it was hard for me to run.
I agree with you about the layout of layer actions. I do prefer the Pathfinder layout where those things would be set as a separate complex hazard that you would see in the encounter group, so that because it's easier to remember that it takes a turn. I just think that by giving them the name layer action, even if they had done that and used the Pathfinder style layout for it, it may have made people more, or calling it layer something, it may have made people more likely to remember to use them.
Yeah, you give something a cool name and people are like, ooh, that's cool. What is that? We'll try to feed our kids stuff every once in a while, and like, it won't be like, oh, this is like beef stew. This is like this is something. And we'll give it like some cool name, like, ooh, yeah, let me try that. So how do you take things from Pathfinders to 5e then? Is, from what I understand, it's like a little bit more art than like chart, but like what are the steps that you take to, like, at least for the numbers? Maybe like we could start there, like, so.
Okay, so I think that it's a combination of art and chart, but I do have to say on this one that while I have done it before for certain elements, and I'm happy to say that some of our 5e players actually told me they really, really liked the one that I did. But I usually am not the one who does this, because the same way that I would say that much as I know Pathfinder 2, you know Nimble. And if the two of us were going to do, Mark and Evan, we're going to convert some Nimble monsters, some of the maybe some of the really cool, like, special legendary ones into Pathfinder, and just convert some of the Pathfinder ones into Nimble as a, like, promotion, I would suggest that I am the one who converts the Nimble ones into Pathfinder, and that you convert the Pathfinder ones into Nimble. It's for the same reason that if you were trying to translate between Japanese and English, and you have people who are bilingual, but you want the person who is, like, if they're not completely exactly bilingual and they're balanced in every way, you would want the person who is, like, let's say they're a native English speaker who knows a lot of Japanese to do Japanese to English, and the native Japanese speaker who knows a lot of English to do English to Japanese, because you want the native speaker to be the one who's converting it into it. For that reason, we got Paul Hughes to do our monster conversion. He is well known for Level Up, Level Up 5e's
Oh yeah,
monster math. He did he basically did spreadsheets. He reverse engineered. He created all of these tables, and not only that,
that's a
but
great monster book.
yeah, it's a really good monster book. Paul knows his stuff on 5e monsters, I think, better than almost anybody else that I know. And I actually know people who have worked at WotC before who are incredibly, incredibly talented, but that the people I specifically know didn't do as many monster books overall. And I think that it's possible. I have not given them a contest or anything, that Paul is up there on that. And in fact, he redid the numbers to look to see what changed in 2024 and put it up on his blog that was like, it's like Blog of Holding or something like that. And it's like a YouTuber found it and just like randomly one time, Steven was like, Paul, they're just giving you a shout out, where they were just like, Paul Hughes did all this math and now we can see all of these numbers. But
unlock the code.
the funniest thing about it that I find is someone once asked me, he was like, so your early books before 2024 came out with these monsters, are they like gonna stack up to the 2024 monsters? And the funniest thing about them is that we actually asked Paul, because he actually runs even high level 5e for his group. And he's like, yeah, if you use the ones that are in the books, they don't hold up to their CR. They're not going to work. And we were like, Paul, just give us things that actually hold up. Even if they don't follow the tables for D&D. When we first were doing this in 2014. So he did it. And he made up some numbers that he thought were better for it. And then when 2024 came out and we had some things he had written like just before, and we're like, okay, well now we know what the numbers are, what it has to change. He's like, well, I did my analysis for my blog anyway. I discovered that it is like eerily similar to the things I were already doing. They also found that at higher levels, certain numbers needed to change. It was almost the exact same. So there are a few numbers he was like that I'll tweak, but honestly, the original ones are like, we were closer to designing 2024 numbers than 2014 back in 2014.
Yeah, 10 years ago.
Well, we didn't start quite that. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. And so anyway, we have Paul. Cool. If anybody knows like what those numbers would be, it would be him on that. Like, I can do it, but I do it more artly. If there is a science to it, he probably would be able to explain it the best in terms of that, because he's the guy who reverse engineered those 5e numbers. And I have played 5e. I like 5e. In fact, I'd say I love Dungeons and Dragons, like pretty much every edition I've played. But Paul has run a lot more than me of 5e.
This one I did find for 5e, Forge of Foes. This is by Mike Shea, Teo Sabadia, and Scott Fitzgerald Gray. They've got some pretty good charts here on like what the CR versus the CR3 should have this many hit points and this many attacks and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of thing I think is really helpful. Like when the numbers are like a little bit obscured and you don't really know exactly where it's supposed to be. So I did like this one, but I have the level up monster menagerie, the monster book for level up 5e. And yeah, those numbers are a lot more appropriate for like different levels of heroes than the ones, especially in like the 2014 Monster Manual.
And yes, Casey Robertson chats, Paul is now at MCDM. That is true. Man, as of the end of February. Yeah. He's really awesome, and he's done a ton of stuff with us at Roll for Combat. Like, literally hundreds of conversions.
Matt's, I've got the MCDM books up here too. Like his books, like they are tight. They are tight mechanically. So you could definitely say that. So that's cool. So what are some of your favorite, like what are the coolest Pathfinder monsters? I want to see like what are the coolest
Pathfinder
ones? Maybe not like the most
monsters.
complicated ones.
So
But, like,
the owlbear is one I would show, not because it's the coolest monster of all time, but just because the contrast with the other owlbears is such that I think that it shows what Pathfinder monster design can be.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one where if someone had the meme of like where they showed like one side and the other side of one of them is like downcast and sad, the other was like, oh, I'm so happy or whatever. You know those memes that someone might do that with like the owlbear, which I do like. There's a lot of other ones that just have things that are silly that I like sometimes. Like for instance, the Hecaton Kyries Titan they're the hundred-handed ones from Greek mythology. One of the children of Gaia and Uranus who were imprisoned, and they have 100 hands. So they have a funny ability, which is that they have 99 extra attacks of opportunity per round, one for each hand.
It's funny.
It was funny just because you could give them an unlimited number, but it was funnier to give them 99 extra, so that it was exactly equal to the number of their hands. They're also just like
that is cool.
Incredibly ridiculous. The Grim Reaper is also incredibly ridiculous and potentially overpowered, even for a level 21 monster, which the fact that a level 21 monster that is often encountered solo is scary enough that is considered to be overpowered sometimes or potential like killer monster just tells you that Pathfinder is more okay at playing games against level 21 monsters than a lot of other game systems I've played, where by the time you get to that level, the PCs can just probably tactically nuke 3 planets on their turn, and not to mention whatever monsters are there.
I really like to go back to the 100-handed Titan guy.
Mm-hmm.
I love anytime like the mechanics and the flavor or the lore of it like just match up so nicely. I think that's just the coolest thing. Magic recently had a Final Fantasy set, and there was like this. I never really played Final Fantasy much, but there's this like giant cactus that if you do something, it has an attack called 10,000 Needles.
Yes.
And then like you do this, and it normally has one attack, but if you do this thing, it gets plus 9,199. So its attack becomes 10,000. It's completely wacko. Like it's completely crazy for the game. Like in a game you start with 20 life, like 10,000 is like, it doesn't matter. It might as well be infinite. But it's just like that flavor of it is really cool. Are you ever going to use 99 attacks of opportunity? Probably not. But it is super cool that you have that. And like this is the explanation why, because he's got 100 hands, he could do this 100 times. Yeah, I love that. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, I really like that. And in Final Fantasy, that Cactuar or Cactrot, like, sometimes it did its 10,000 damage one at a time, so it would have been even funnier in Magic if it's like, if this creature attacks and is unblocked, it does 1 damage 10,000 times. It would be funny if to interact with like an opponent who reduces damage by 1 and be like, yeah, so I took none because I take 0 10,000 times. Yeah, but see, that's the kind of thing that you can, if you fit into the flavor and you design it around that, you can actually create these weird and interesting combinations. That, like, if there was some effect that, like, did something to everybody's arms, and this guy got his 100 arms screwed up, you would know he would not be able to make those extra attacks because it's 1 for each arm.
10,000 handcuffs. Yeah. Where do you get inspiration as your, because you do most of the monster design, right, for all of the different Battlezoo stuff?
So I would say of all the things in the Battlezoo universe, the monsters are the things I have done the smallest percentage of, and that's actually because Battlezoo's gigantic bestiaries have a very special selling point, like those seasonal Fae orchestra that you converted over into Nimble were the grand prize winners of a open contest. And so we create bestiaries that are actually from people like the people who are watching the show right now who want to get into the game but are not already professional game designers. We let the audience vote, and then among the best ones chosen by the audience, we have professional game designers come in and select only the best of the best. And then we have professional game designers and developers like me or Linda Zayas Palmer, who also worked on the Pathfinder bestiary and a ton of Adventures in Monsters, come in and bring those monsters up to professional standards. Because usually they're very good and they have at least extremely good ideas when they were the best of the best in the open contest. But there's still a few secret sauce things that would be like, well, if we were going to publish this in a Paizo book or a Roll for Combat book, we wouldn't have phrased it exactly this way, or we would have been clearer about the interaction with these two abilities, or we would have made it so that these abilities didn't compete for the creature's attention and the GM's attention or something like that. And so they'll be tweaked and adjusted and released. And because of that fact, I have not written that many monsters for Roll for Combat. I wrote a ton for the original Pathfinder 2 release. In fact, the very first monsters ever created for the Pathfinder 2 Alpha, way back when we didn't have like almost anything, there were like 4 things that I made. I had like a skeleton, a zombie, and like an ogre. And I can't remember which one was next, but I did the skeletons and zombies almost first because I wanted to have 2. So that could be another interesting thing to look at, but just they got more stuff added to them later on from those very first ones that I made. And I wasn't the one who wrote the finalized stat block for like the full game, but the concept and the idea of they're both level -1, aka 2 levels lower than a level 1 creature. They would be like a CR 1/8 or something in D&D. They're both level -1 undead, but they could not be more different from each other in the way that they feel to play against. Because the zombie has only 2 actions per round. It has an amount of hit points more than the maximum you're supposed to give to a level -1 that is absurd. But it also is weak against like slashing damage and can take a ton of extra damage from that. It has armor class that's so low that you're going to crit them all the time. And the skeleton has resistances that are so high that you're not supposed to put resistances that are that high at that level, but its hit points are so low that it will die in 1 hit to a lot of things.
Is it the zombie shambler that you're talking about?
Yes, that's correct. And the skeleton guard, I think, is the negative one. So the basic zombie shambler, its hit points are just like, if you look at any other level -1s, they're going to have like 8, somewhere around there. The zombie shambler has 20. It's more than double.
Okay.
And it's
so 12 AC is low for Pathfinder?
12 AC is terrible. The reason why is that the armor class formula is equal to 10 plus your level plus your dexterity modifier plus your armor. And so, like, let's say that you are a rogue, something that's not a wizard, because wizards are like, you know, they're in cloth and they don't have great dex always. If you're a rogue at first level, you are level 1, so that's 10 plus 1, that's 11. You probably have, in Pathfinder, because of the way that stats are assigned, you probably have a 4 in your dexterity. And
so you start off with 15 AC?
That is if you choose not to wear armor. And it's not it's not quite even there yet, because you also get to add your, if you have proficiency, you get to add that too. So you would have 17 without armor, or 18 if you wear your leather armor. You probably have 18 because
really,
yes. Now your wizard is at least proficient in their robes, so your wizard is probably going to have somewhere in between. Realistically, they probably have +1 in their dex. They could have +3 if they really, really are worried about getting hit. Yeah. So they're going to have somewhere in between 11 plus either somewhere between 1 and 3. We'll say 1 for now. So that's 12. 2 for proficiency in their robes is 14. And then the robes don't give anything because it's a robe. So they have somewhere between 14 and 16 is the wizard. And and if the wizard just totally dumped their dex, they could have 13. But that's still better than 12. If they not only did that, but they picked an ancestry that gave a penalty on dex, then refused to raise it at any point during the process where they'd be given 4 chances to do so, then they could have 12.
Okay, so that's not the floor, that's the basement.
Yes.
Oh, hey, Steven's in the chat. He says, greetings from GaryCon. All right. Cool.
Greetings. That's actually Derek from Knights of Last Call.
Oh, Knights of Last Call. Yeah, Derek. Yeah.
Hey, Derek. Greetings.
I mean, they look so similar, you know.
Yeah, you know what? They're similar. Someone at the very beginning of this chat said that they thought the thumbnail was Derek with when he got shaved. The nerd
Yeah, you
baby.
can't shave.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they said nice shave, Derek.
Yeah, if you've never met Derek, he's like 6 or 7 feet tall.
Yeah,
he's
he's
a
a big guy.
So.
He's a big guy. So yeah, the 12 AC for the zombie shambler is actually really, really bad, and it's very easy to hit. So the accuracy on my rogue, because fighters have higher accuracy, so let's ignore them. My rogue probably has +7 to hit because he's adding his level and his proficiency. My fighter would have +9 at first level. This is at first level. My most martial characters would have 7. So think about that. To hit 12, you only need to roll a 5. And not only that, a 15 or above is a crit, which actually means that against the zombie shambler, I have better odds of hitting than I do with the D4 weapon in Nimble. And better odds of critting than I do with the D4 weapon in Nimble.
Yeah. So you were there when Pathfinder was initially being developed, right?
Pathfinder 2nd edition, but yes.
The 2nd edition, okay. So what was the thought process behind like the floor being 12?
Well,
like,
I mean,
there are some
there are some monsters that are below 12, to be fair. But so the thought process on that is essentially that we wanted a formula that's really easy to apply. It's easy to apply and it's easy to remember. Because it's just 10 plus your proficiency plus your stat. And
was it like there's a percentage of times we want to hit and miss. And if the D20 is controlling like whether we hit or miss, we need to have the floor at least this high so that you're missing an appropriate amount of time. Was that kind of it?
So, yes, that's very important. Because I was talking before without explaining completely why that, let's say 3rd edition D&D failed its promise that a monster who was 2 levels higher was, in fact, twice as powerful, like it said in the building encounters table. There's a reason why it failed. And it was not because the creators didn't understand the math of that go into all of these formulas. The reason why it failed is in fact that the game had an unbounded amount of bonuses that you could gain to your accuracy and armor class with your character, or nearly unbounded.
So it just grew too fast.
And 5e also, to an extent, has that anytime you find a bonus, it stacks with any other bonus. And I've heard of people tell me that their 4th level fighter easily would hit a Balor on a 3 in 5e, for example. But only because they found a bunch of things in a bunch of different books that all work together.
Yeah, it's really like it feels like 5e is balanced on a razor's edge. Like if you give a +1 armor or shield or something in 5e, it could throw everything off. This one guy's impossible to hit, and then everybody else the monster hits him all the time. So in order to challenge this guy, the monsters have to be so good that they're one-shotting these guys and rarely hitting this guy. So,
that was a big problem in 3rd edition too, and Pathfinder 1st edition. To be clear, it's not only things that were published by Wizards of the Coast. In fact, it probably was worse than it was in 5e because at least there are fewer ways to stack things up in 5e. So the reason why that all thing failed in those other editions is because when you can cheat the odds so that when we were talking about if something hits on a 10 and then gains 3 accuracy, it gains 50% more damage in Pathfinder 2. And let's say we're playing in any other edition where hitting by 10 doesn't give you a crit because that threw things off. In those other editions, getting +3 would raise your damage by a little bit under a third instead, because it would go from 11 to 14, say. But here's the thing. If I already hit on a 3, then it just doesn't matter. And therefore it throws off all of the math if I already hit on... you can never, ever create a situation where a monster 2 levels higher is twice as powerful, and that you keep that approximated exponential curve if you are if you have busted the math such that you always hit even though you weren't supposed to, if you see what I mean.
There's Steven. Uh, poor Evan learning about Pathfinder will hurt his head. No, I find it interesting. Just really interesting
He's the one asking
how
me.
different games approach. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely opting into it. Okay, so what is like the ideal accuracy rate or miss rate in Pathfinder?
So
Or maybe not ideal, maybe like typical.
So the thought process that we had was that, so let's talk about the ideal encounter. According to
Yeah.
Pathfinder, the ideal encounter has about the same number of enemies in it as it does PCs.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Also, according to Pathfinder, the strongest encounter you could put in that Pathfinder doesn't blare red warning signals at you for is severe, which if you have an equal number and they're all the same level, they'll be one level lower than you. And that's still considered to be a pretty tough fight. That's probably like the harshest encounter you do in that day. Whereas like a moderate encounter, which to be clear does not just mean it's humdrum. It means it is moderately dangerous. There is danger in it.
Yeah.
You will maybe use some resources. Is for things that are 2 levels lower than you. And a low threat encounter, that's one that theoretically there's a threat. Something bad could happen. It just probably won't. That's for monsters that are 3 levels lower. Anything below that is trivial, where we're just like, honestly, the biggest risk is if one of your players is bad at managing resources and wastes a lot of spells on this for no reason.
Okay.
And so, because of that fact, in this ideal scenario, you're encountering things that are lower level than you. If you do encounter something that's higher level than you, it's like alone, or it doesn't have that many of them. Maybe there's one, like we talked about, you're level 5 and there's one level 6 and a bunch of level 4s. Because of that fact, we felt that it was kind of ideal if you had and this is pre-buff, right? This is not with flanking. This is not with putting up like a bard song on yourself. There are many ways to adjust these numbers. Beyond that, you could use like a true strike and roll twice and take the higher kind of advantage to style thing. That you wanted to have better odds than not, especially for your martial character, of hitting against these things that are lower level than you. Whereas it maybe should be a little bit more challenging against the things that are higher level than you, because that's how the math formulas work to allow it to survive long enough. Like, if you're fighting a solo instead of 4 guys, it needs to survive 4 times as much to be able to stay in there and do the fight. And
right.
certainly doesn't have 4 times as many hit points. Where do the rest of that survivability come from? It comes from you missing or not critting it much, at the very least.
Right.
And so that's how that's how it works.
So, like a level 4 hero and a level 4 monster, like how often should you expect them to hit each other, like roughly?
So if they are the same level as each other, and let's say, I don't know, we're the rogue again, not a fighter. Fighters and monsters both have higher accuracy than most characters have. Whereas monsters have lower damage than pretty much any characters will have. Any martial character. Like, they're closer to a fighter's damage, but fighters can still do better than them, usually. Unless the monster is one of those big brutes that has lower accuracy and higher damage, then they're actually a little closer to a PC. PCs still do more damage than that, though, over time. So, people like to hyper-focus on the fact that the monsters have the higher accuracy and be like, monsters are better than me in everything. But there are certain things that PCs are better than monsters. So let's say we're level 4. So, and we're a rogue, and we're facing a soldier-based monster. These are kind of the tougher ones. They have high armor and accuracy. All right? So the monster, on average, will have 21 AC and 14 accuracy. That, in fact, is what the owlbear has as well. The owlbear is a little closer to the soldier array than the brute array, and you don't have to pick exactly from arrays. You have full customization with a lot of advice in the creature builder, and it's hard for me to try to advertise the creature builder because Logan and I built it, so I I wrote it alongside one of the other designers, but I've heard from other people who are not me, a lot of people who were very happy with it for giving lots of advice on how it's used, and a ton. If you go to like building creatures on Archives of Death, it's free. Just a ton of tables with numbers and advice on how to use it. But let's say we have this owlbear, which happens to have the high AC and the high accuracy, and we're up against our rogue. So our rogue is at that level, expecting to have an accuracy of, and to be clear, we have picked level 4, and I want you to know that at level 5 is a hallmark level where rogue gains a massive amount of accuracy, and so this is going to be like the worst possible position for that. Actually, all martial classes gain a ton of accuracy at level 5. It's just one of the things that happens.
Okay.
It's kind of like one of the levels in 5e where like your proficiency modifier goes up.
Yeah. Every once in a while, there's a lump in the power
Yes.
curve. Yeah.
The lump is 5. So this is our bad situation.
Okay.
So we're gonna have an accuracy. We're level 4. We're still gonna have a 4 in our decks. It hasn't gone up. It won't until level 10. So we have 8 from that. Like 1 from item is gonna be 9, and then 2 from proficiency because proficiency has not gone up. So we have an 11. So we are, if we don't flank, and to be clear, we're a rogue, we probably are gonna flank or catch them off guard or like be hiding or something, because we're not even gonna get sneak attack if we don't do that. So if we've chosen poorly and we're not doing something that will get a sneak attack, we were gonna hit on a 10. That's a 55% hit chance, but we were also facing a monster that is in a condensed encounter where there are fewer of them, right? Because the hardest monster you would ever face in equal numbers is actually one level lower than that. So we have a 55% chance to hit, but we are facing a extreme encounter, the one that is too hard to use normally, at the level that is worse for the rogue. It only gets better from there. So let's say that we kept the owlbear, but now the rogue is level 5. So this is a severe encounter. I think that's easy. So the rogue is now gained 3 accuracy and now has a 70% chance to hit. Like I said, 5 is a exceptional level for the rogue's accuracy, and that's without the flank. So if we have any means,
what does flanking do?
It makes them off guard, so we can do a sneak attack. If we flank, if we hide, if we feint and trick them, it's anything.
Does that increase the damage or the accuracy?
It lowers the monster's armor class. Now you're wondering, why doesn't it increase the accuracy like in many editions of D&D? So I proposed this, and the other designers liked my reasoning. The reason it lowers the armor class instead is because the person who needs to understand whether or not they have been flanked is the person who is being flanked. Because some creatures have abilities that they're immune to being flanked, or they like, I have eyes all around my body, or like if you're hiding, it does the same thing to your opponent, and like, who knows whether you saw them or not? The person who knows that they saw the other person is the defender. And so by putting it on armor class, that means the person who knows for sure that they were in this situation where they are off guard is the one applying the penalty. Whereas many times in games where that kind of thing is an accuracy bonus or gives advantage or something like that, I have seen the player just roll with it, and then the other person or the GM rolls with it against the players, and the other person is like, wait, time out. Did you apply a +2 for flanking? Because you shouldn't have, actually. I am a rogue and I cannot be flanked. Or something like that. So
gotcha. Okay. No,
that
makes sense.
It would lower the armor class. That would mean our bad scenario where we're up against a red flashing light fight and we're at level 4, we're going to find some way to do a sneak attack. We got to do that. So we'll still hit 65% of the time. That's about 2/3. And if we were one level higher, we would now hit 80% of the time. And not only that, we would crit 20% of the time, which is, let me tell you, critting 20... Well, I don't need to tell you, because you have a game system where if you use a D4 weapon, you can crit 25% of the time. It's really fun to crit 20 or 25% of the time.
Or 75% of the time.
Hey, if you have enough advantages or cheats, 100% of the time.
As long as you hit, you can change it to a crit.
Oh man, I misread that ability, and it was not as good as I thought. I thought that you could actually use it on a 1 to turn it into a 4, but
you have to hit. Yeah,
you have to hit.
As long as you hit, you can change it to whatever you like.
It's not quite as... See, I read through the classes, but not as thoroughly in the wording as I would have liked, and I was like, that's really good. It
Yeah,
seemed like
yeah,
it was
yeah. No,
especially
I
good.
made it uppercase
Okay.
in the
No,
revision,
that
just
makes
to clarify.
sense.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, you're not the only one to miss that.
It seemed
Okay,
like the
so like
cheat was a really good character for attacking multiple times, though, in Nimble, because as long as you did not miss, even if you had disadvantage on your attack, you could easily then turn it around into a crit.
yeah, so they could do that once per turn.
Yeah,
But
so
so they could do
if
it on
you
their
hold
turn,
off
and
on
then
it, if you hold off on it on the first one, you can use it on a later one when you need it more, maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay, so like a typical accuracy is like 2/3 to what 4/5,
And that's if you
65 to eighty
don't have
percent.
a bard or anyone in your or a cleric casting bless or anybody in the party who
Yeah.
is there to help you out. Keep in mind also that fighters are 10% more accurate than everybody else. So they
Okay.
would be going from that. They would be 75 in that bad scenario where they're level 4,
Uh-huh.
but they're flanking. They'd
So
be 75, and they'd be 90% with with a, what did we say there? If we have a 90% chance to hit, then our crit chance is actually 40%. It's like almost
mhm,
half. And that was against a monster who was
yeah.
only one level lower than us as well with the fighter. There's a reason why people in Pathfinder often, the meme is that fighter is really strong, which is fun for me because the meme is usually that fighter is weak in like every version of D&D and Pathfinder
Yeah, oh
I've
yeah.
played.
Yeah.
But the meme is that it's strong because that +2 accuracy is so good that people just like,
Yeah.
every other class has some other really cool thing they do, but they're like, people are just like, I love that accuracy because I want to hit and I want to crit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Nin80s asks, how does Nimble do in counter math? So it feels similar with, like cousins. It feels like so like I've just until now like this is the most I've ever learned about Pathfinder. Um so it just sort of happens to be similar. So like if you have a level 4 hero and you have a level 4 monster, that is a challenging but fair fight. The hero should be expected to win. Um so like that would be like a good challenging fight, and that sort of goes across, no matter how many heroes you have. um so as long as the levels of the monsters equal the levels of the monsters of the heroes. So if you have like 4 level 5, that's just 20 levels, and you have like basically assemble any number of 20 levels worth of monsters, and it'll be fine. So like two level 10 things, or 3 level 7 things will be roughly fine. So anything like that in that wheelhouse. So if it's equal, then it's this difficulty. It's a little bit less and it's a little bit easier. So it's just 1-to-1 with that.
And so that's a little different than Pathfinder in that the monsters are a little bit weaker for their level than a player character is. The other thing that Nin might want to know is that the encounter math as you level up and include things that are higher level is linear in Nimble, and that is because Nimble does not have Taylor polynomials. Nimble has the same accuracy at all times. You only miss if you roll a 1 on the first of the dice that you are rolling, which with disadvantage, it could be worse for you than that. And you crit if you roll the maximum number. Because of that, you are, unless the monster has some weird special ability for being higher level, you're equally likely to hit an ooze that is standing there on the ground as you are to hit like Hermes, the god of speed, who can like teleport around the battlefield. And due to that fact, it's only natural that monsters are linear. So like 2 level 5s is a level 10. And Evan did the work on the math. I looked at it just to see, because I love looking at math, to make sure the damage and hit points scale linearly so that this will be a fair thing in Nimble. It wouldn't be in Pathfinder because we have this exponential scaling due to the accuracy, but because of how Nimble does accuracy, of all the systems that try to say, like, oh yeah, 2 5s is equal to a 10, I've seen other ones that did that where I looked at it and I'm like, it's not really, though, because they're better in multiple ways. But in Nimble, it really is, because the only thing that's actually, other than if you're trying to throw saving throws at them, which does change things a little bit, the only thing that's going up is numbers that are scaling linearly. So it's really telling the truth when it says 2 3s is like a 6.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like there's special abilities too that can sort of tweak it a little bit. But yeah, the numbers are all pretty straightforward. So it's really easy to just just like throw an encounter together and know exactly how hard or easy it's going to be.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
So
That's cool. Yeah, I
I
feel like I've
suggest
learned
to
a lot
people
about.
to look at Nimble if they want to see how to make one where through 4 level 2s equals a level 8 and equals 2 level 4s, and where there's the adding up the levels where it works and where it really doesn't just say that it works, but it does, because you want to have something like Nimble does with a static accuracy that does not depend upon what you're attacking, and that's a very very elegant way to put in that style of encounter builder, which is also a very simple and intuitive encounter builder to use for people.
Mhm. Yeah, like if once players learn what a level is, because like people who are new to games, like, well, what do you mean level? Like level means like something that's flat and not like tilted, but it's a game term. So like once you learn what level is, you have like a level 4 thing or level 4 thing, like they're roughly the same. So like that any time we have like game terms or concepts that we can like use in a way that you would expect, I think it's really good to use those. Um,
The opposite is
yeah.
also
So
true. Anytime you have to use a game term in a way that is disjoint with the expectations that people would have intuitively with that word, you are going to find problems. And it's can be tempting for players who do understand the rules, or for game designers to be like, this person is just being intentionally obtuse, and oftentimes they're not. Some people are, especially when their interpretation is in their favor, but a lot of times it's just honestly, yes, the rules may have directly said this thing, but they use the words in a weird way, and your intuitive way that you would think of the words was something else, and so it's easy to miss it, right? I missed that the cheat on a miss cannot use their ability to turn the number into a crit when I was quickly skimming through it, and I'm a professional game designer. I wasn't trying to like make my cheat an overpowered character. I've never even played Nimble. I didn't, and if I did, I might not have
yeah,
played a cheat. Although they did look like a lot of fun.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that is a good point. So like new players are fun. It's fun to watch new players play. So like I've got a D10 and like a lot of times a new player will like, oh no, I got a 0. Like, no, that's good. And they're like, oh what? 0 is good? All of a sudden? Like I thought bigger was better. No, 0 means 10. But there's like other games where like sometimes you rolling high is good, and other times in the same game like rolling low is good. So like that like switching back and forth between like I can get used to golf. Like if we're golfing and like, oh, I got a lot of points. No, points are bad. Okay, I got to let that like you can do that. Like in a race, like number one is good. Okay, like you sort of just set your mind on that. Number one is good, and then like in the same game, like sometimes points like going higher is better and lower is better. So like that kind of thing, I think just takes a toll on people as they're playing. Like people aren't dumb. Like they can do that, but it takes up like some fraction of their mental bandwidth. And as much as we can in Pathfinder, like higher is always better in Pathfinder, right?
Yes, we don't want you to ever get confused in that way. You always want to roll
Yeah.
higher. You never ever want to roll lower. And like I've
Yeah.
seen submissions to our contest where there were the monsters like, my special ability is that lower is better, and I'm just like, no.
No. No. Yeah.
That's
You
I
can't do
see
that.
that you want to do a joke monster, you want it to be silly, but we're not doing that. We're
Yeah.
not making lower to
But
be better.
was it second edition that had Thaco where like the lower your armor class was, the better it
Oh
was?
yes. And
So like
if anything, Thaco, which is much maligned now, was better than what they had before, which was that you just had to look on charts, because there wasn't a Thaco was an
yes.
attempt to unify the charts into a formula, which was
Yeah.
maybe not good, but better than just using the charts.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, so like we can't make fun of anybody, but like we learn from like ideas of the past. But yeah, like anytime like things go up good, like you can just remember that. You don't really have to like write that down. But like if sometimes like, oh, I got this new piece of magical equipment. I remember playing, I think it was like Planescape Torment or something. I got a new piece of magical equipment, and then my armor class went down. I was like, wait,
Is it
I thought
cursed?
I thought this was supposed. Yeah, what happened? So like it's just confusing. Like hit points going higher is good, but this other one going down is bad. So anytime we can save that mental bandwidth for people, I think it's a good thing. And even with like learning new terms, like save versus saving throw.
Yes.
Or like, for me, like learning armor class, like, okay, class, like for most people, class is like you go to school, you go to class. Like, class being a game term. Okay, I could get it. It's like the kind of hero you are. But then armor class doesn't have anything to do with your class. It has to do with like your stats or your armor, So like those kinds of things, anywhere I think we can like fix those little opportunities for confusion, I think is a really, really good thing.
I agree. Like, for instance, armor class, like, it feels more fitting with, like, difficulty class at the very least, where saving throw and attack roll and skill check all having different nouns at the end is kind of confusing. But
Yeah.
it would be even better if instead of difficulty class and armor class, maybe you just had a term called a difficulty, and this was your armor difficulty. And it's just called armor. And you say, armor is defined as a difficulty that is used by people who have to roll against or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the one that is used often by attack rolls or whatever. And so I'm with you on that. The other thing that can get in, and someone mentioned this in chat, is something that we were able to fix it in Pathfinder 2nd edition, but Pathfinder 1st inherited from 3.5 and 3.0 the fact that if you were from like heaven or hell or somewhere like that, any of those creatures were called not extraplanar creatures, they were called outsiders. And so because of that, the English word outsider had now been sort of kidnapped and taken away, and now it means that you're like actually like a succubus in disguise. So if you try to write a sentence that says like this lady came to town and she was an outsider or something like that, the other people ostracized her. Of course they ostracized her. She was probably a demon, right? She was an outsider. It's like, no, we were just trying to say she was not part of the crowd. Yeah. So we reclaimed the term outsider by not calling those creatures that. But it is something that people who play for long enough still call them outsiders because the term becomes ingrained. But a new player could get confused by that, or just editors just being like, now we don't have those words. You've taken away our words. We cannot use them.
Yeah. So like armor instead of armor class, great.
Yeah.
In Nimble, like because so many people are familiar with DC, so in Nimble it's difficulty check. So like you're making a check on how difficult it is. So like it's the same. Like we're using as much of the good thing as we can.
Yeah.
Like the things.
And
that
then AC
know.
could be armor check if you had it, which you don't. But if you added a AC that was more like D&D or Pathfinder into Nimble, it could be still AC, the same acronym, but it would be armor check. Yeah. And this is the armor you're checking against in the hypothetical Nimble that it had that. And I would like that. Yeah. I would think that makes sense.
Yeah. So like class always means only this. And like level only ever means this. So like when you're talking about different spells that you can cast, like, oh, I'm level 3. I can cast level 3 spells. No. It doesn't work that way. Check this chart, and this chart will tell you what level spells you can cast and this and this and this. And like, I can't tell you how many of my friends that has confused, like playing D&D.
That's why we have ranks now in Pathfinder, finally.
Is it ranks? Okay, that's good. So in Nimble, it's tiers. So like
tiers are good too.
It's a different word. Like so that like level only has this one meaning, and it's not like these two different confusing meanings.
In my mind, and keeping in mind that Pathfinder 2 originally just had level for both because we couldn't get it through. Some people wanted the Sacred Cows, but it now has changed. In my mind, your two options are something like tier or rank, or changing the spells so that it's like, oh, what is a level 17 spell? It is the spell you get at level 17.
Yep.
That is also an option. And in fact, Eldamon, we talked about it. You mentioned it briefly earlier. Thank you. And we are having a Kickstarter coming out soon. Stephen will be pleased. But Eldamon has powers, which are a new magic system. Entirely new magic casting system that is not slot-based, that you can just get your stuff back by like refreshing your energy, and you still get to do a turn, but it's just not as like damaging as a normal one. But these powers have levels, and those levels are equal to the level that you can get it. So the ultimate powers are level 19. You have to be level 19 to get them.
That's cool. Yeah, like that totally makes sense. And I really like that when like you can just tell someone like, here's this thing. What do you think it means? And like they just guess it correct. because you've designed it that way. I think that's smart design. Like you think ahead for them so that they don't have to think and they could just have fun.
I always think that's a hallmark of good design is when people are already able to guess how something works. Like one of the things that makes me happiest in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because look, if you're watching this and you decided to watch it because you like the little baby face on the thing, or you're watching because you want to see Evan because he's awesome and you're a Nimble guy and you don't know Pathfinder 2, I'm going to level with you that I know Pathfinder 2 has a lot of rules that are in there. And some of those rules can take a little bit to understand why they're in there. Just like Evan asked about them here, and we explained some of them. But one of the benefits, and I put this in here from my knowledge of computer science, where you want to have modular code so that if you have something that works, you can pull it out and it works somewhere else. So one of the things that makes me so happy is when people have learned some of those basics about Pathfinder 2. Like, we talked about it here. When you're rolling a d20 and you're adding your result, if you succeed by 10, you get a critical success. That's not just on attack rolls, though. That's on saving throws. That's on skill checks. And fail by 10 is critical failure. So people learned those kind of things and they applied them. And then they were like, I made up this roll on the fly using the advice on improvising rules, because we do have advice for that. And based on my knowledge of how critical successes and things work, I came up with a critical success versus success for this. And then I later looked it up in the book, and it was exactly what I did.
That's
that makes me
cool.
so
That's
happy
really cool.
when people are saying that. They were like, I learned it. And the key system is consistent. It's not like, in old school D&D when you turned undead. Like, talk about Thaco being hard. Thaco is not, I agree, is not good because it goes down, but it could have been worse. The turn undead table was just so bespoke and different than everything else in the game that it...
Oh, there's a table.
In like old editions of D&D, and it was
I thought you were saying... I thought you were saying, like, the turn undead spell, like, turns you undead, or turns something...
No. There is an apocryphal story of someone who thought that they were going to turn into an undead because they were a new person, because the name is not great. That's correct, too.
Uh-huh.
But there's also a table that is so sort of Byzantine that even my most even my most experienced players had to look it up every single time that they turned undead.
Uh-huh.
And so the thing about Pathfinder 2 is that because, yes, there is a little crunch into it, but once you have learned how it works once, you will see that thing that you learned, it's like, it's a valuable time spent doing that, because it is used like 50 other places in the exact same way, and you'll understand how they work immediately once you've done that. And to me, that matters a lot, because if you have a game with an equal number of rules to Pathfinder 2, but where it's all kind of different, that could be a nightmare.
Yeah, good luck. But one of my friends, we were playing, and she was like, I think she was a cleric. We were playing D&D, and she was a cleric, and like one of her friends died. I was like, all right, do you like, you have Raise Dead? Do you wanna cast Raise Dead? She's like, no, I don't want to do. Why would I do that? She thought Raise Dead like would bring him back as a zombie, just because she didn't read the spell. She just, he's dead, and you're gonna raise him back, and he's like, I don't want my friend to be a zombie. We're gonna bury him, and like that's the end of the story for this guy. So like, just the name of the spell like confused her, So like there are lots of those kinds of things.
Absolutely. And you always need to watch out for that. In game design, people think about it. When they think about what game design is, they often think, honestly, about what we were talking about at the beginning when you were asking me questions about like the math formulas and doing Taylor polynomials to approximate an exponential. But to be perfectly honest with you, not every game design team has a person who could even do that on their team, and they still successfully put out games. And even if they do, it's like, maybe it's one guy, like it's me or something, who does those crazy things. The actual part about game design that is hard to understand without doing it professionally, because of the fact that you can design something that is intellectually very good without doing it professionally. Just by being a GM at your own table, learning from your players and putting it in there, it will be intellectually very good. But until you do it professionally, the amount that is about psychology of players that goes against what you would expect and is not at all about the math is huge. And this is one of the effects I'd like to talk about. This even affected a professional game designer who I consider to be extremely skilled. All right, so we had this feat I had made. I had made a feat, and it did several things. Some of them were very strong. One of them, it just made sense that it would kind of be cool that if you could do this main thing, you can also do this like minor other side thing in a certain situation, because it just, you know, it would be kind of like, imagine it was not even close to this, but imagine there was an effect that said that like you can move at really super speed. Like your speed in D&D goes up by plus 200, and also you can walk up linoleum walls because of this.
Yeah.
And so this is an effect I'm going to be talking about that affects everyone. But even this game designer came to me and he's like, I don't know about this feat. I think it might be weak. How often is there even a linoleum wall in the game? And so I turned to this person. I was like, you're right about that, but let me just do this for you. And I took a sheet of paper and I covered up the last sentence where it said you could run up. It was not actually about speed and linoleum walls. I covered up the last sentence, which was a very kind of situational thing that I just thought was cool and fun. It was a ribbon, as you might call it in D&D. And said, read this again. And they looked at it and was like, wait a minute, this might be overpowered.
That's
I just thought it was weak, but now I think it might be overpowered. Maybe it's balanced. Maybe it's overpowered. It's definitely not weak. What just happened? And I was like, well, yeah, we probably have to cut that thing, even though I like it.
Yeah.
And so we then made the feat literally weaker. Okay? Not by a lot, because the thing that I cut was not very strong, and it wouldn't come up that much. But literally weaker by a small amount. Yeah. And everybody thought it was stronger. And other people also said, oh, I noticed you buffed this feat. And I was like, what? No. Yeah. No, we didn't. We actually nerfed it. It wasn't released to the public. This was only internal. We actually nerfed it a very, very small amount. But it is actually tragic because I love those little fun quality of life things. But by including them in there, people think in two ways. Here's the psychology. One is sort of like the mishmash law of averages, where they think of this is good, this is bad, therefore the whole thing is medium.
Yeah.
Like it's a stew. Yeah. Yes. And the second one is the fact that people don't understand intrinsically a lot of the time how much they're supposed to get in a feat. This is also true in real life. Like, let's say back in the day, the people who are now Kobold Press were putting out a magazine called Kobold Quarterly that put out things for multiple different game systems. It was very cheap. It was a very good deal, even if you only played one of those game systems. But people would just all be like, I'm not going to buy it. I don't even play those two game systems.
Yeah.
And so
it feels like you're not getting the value, like
exactly.
Like
So it's like, if I don't get everything that's in here, there could have been something else down at the bottom that was as overpowered as 200 extra speed. It could have given me 30 accuracy instead of walking up linoleum walls. This must be weak.
Yeah.
And so therefore, this psychological aspect, because I analyze things very analytically when I'm reading them to see if I think they're going to be strong. I would have never realized that most people have those effects if I was just playing with me and my group who are like mostly like physics PhDs from MIT. I was a computer science major, but a lot of my group were physicists. Okay. And so this is something that you have to kind of see, and it's weird.
Yes.
And it's almost paradoxical because I weakened it and then it make it seem stronger. But
so like what someone is saying is like, oh, this feat gives me two things. All right, a good thing and this thing I won't use. So like this feat is really only half of a feat. Like I will find myself go to the grocery store, like buy one get one free. Like buy this box of cereal, you'll get a second box of cereal for free and a thing of broccoli. Like I don't want broccoli. I'll just get something else. I'll get a different kind of cereal. So like I don't want this thing they're giving me for free, so I just won't get it at all. So yeah, people are really weird like that.
There's a lot of
someone
things.
asked something that I want to ask you what this means.
Okay.
So someone asked about a counteract rules. What are counteract rules in Pathfinder?
So counteract rules in Pathfinder are something that is probably the techiest piece of like generally utilized rule in Pathfinder, but it exists for a pretty important reason, which is to to allow you to put in effects like Dispel Magic and other things like that can counter other effects at a level that's pretty low to start out with, but in a way so that they don't just like kind of run roughshod over any other effect. And so the way that counteract effects work in Pathfinder is that, like, let's say you have a disease. And
is it like a counterspell kind of thing? Like
sort of.
An extra save on top of a save?
So let's say you have a disease that's like just a common cold, and it's a level 2 disease. It's got a pretty low difficulty class, and you roll your Fortitude or Constitution in D&D. It would be Fortitude in Pathfinder against it. So if I wanted to remove that disease with a Remove Disease or Cleanse Affliction spell, well, this is a level 2 cold. This is easy. But let's say that the gods have created a god plague, and it's level 20. Well, suddenly my 5th level cleric is not going to have a good time removing it in Pathfinder. Actually, in a lot of systems, they would just be fine. They would just be like, well, I just remove it anyway. It doesn't matter that it was a god plague. Unless the GM is in an arms race with the players and says, oh yeah, well, the god plague has immunity to being removed by Remove Disease. And, oh yeah, well, I have the Remove Divine Disease spell from this book that says it can work on things that have immunity to being removed. But in Pathfinder 2, instead, there are counteract ranks. And basically what this means is that we'll use counterspell as an example instead of a disease now, because that's the one that you were talking about. I think a lot of viewers would be familiar with it. If I want to use my minimum rank counterspell, it would be tier in Nimble, which is rank 2. Okay? So I am not going to be countering like a meteor swarm or like a wish or something like that with this. And the way it works is
So it's not like you roll a thing and like you get a 20 and it just works. Like certain things are just out of the capability of that to interact with.
Exactly. And here's how this is done specifically. And you roll a counteract check. It's basically like it comes down to like your spell power versus theirs on this, more or less. Like, let's say that I have a spell DC of 20, and Evan, you're a little bit stronger of a wizard than me, and you have a spell DC of 22. And so we'll just cut 10 off of your 22 and make it a 12, and you'll be rolling plus 12 against my 20. That's going to happen no matter what counter spell you use, whether it's a 2nd rank dispel magic, a 3rd rank, a 4th, a 5th, whatever. You're rolling plus 12 against 20. What changes is the result. So if you make it, let's say you rolled an 8, you got a 20. You can destroy an effect that's up to 1 rank higher than you, because you're the one who took the effort to go remove it. So you can push above your weight class. If you actually critically succeed, which probably is going to be on a 20, but maybe it's not, probably is, then you can beat something up to 3 ranks higher than you. So that would let you stop like a Cone of Cold with a 2nd rank effect, but only on a crit. But if it's 4 or more higher than you, you just can't do it. And if you fail but not by 10 or more, you just fail by a little bit, it actually beats effects that are up to 1 rank lower than you. So if you're like, we cannot let this Cone of Cold go off, it's too strong. But I will use this 6th rank spell. And now, even on a fail, since 6 is 1 higher than 5 for Cone of Cold, even on a fail, I'm going to stop it. On a critical failure, you just completely flub everything because you fail by 10, and nothing happens regardless of what you did. So the reason why people asked about it in chat is that in order to get this effect, which is actually really cool for the game and the way that it sort of incentivizes, like, when something is a more powerful disease, you need to find the high priest to do it, or your PCs can do it, but you can't just say, oh, well, why don't you just use these 55th level clerics in the temple? Why didn't they remove the epidemic? It lets you tell a lot of stories and put in effects like that don't like throw off the gameplay. But because of the fact people have to remember, oh, well, it's 1 higher on a success, 3 higher on a crit, 1 lower on a failure, or complete fizzle on a critical failure, that's actually a little complicated. And so it's one of the things that is hardest to remember in the entire game. If you're thinking, I could probably remember that probably means you could remember everything that's in Pathfinder 2. because it is more
I probably can't
complicated than
remember
the
all
rest.
that.
Well, then you might not be able to remember it and would have to look it up, which puts you in good
Yeah.
company with most players.
Okay. Okay.
There's nothing else in Pathfinder 2 that's really that complex. And it's just to be able to like overcome and remove a condition or effect.
Mm-hmm.
And
If you can handle
Possibility
those
points
details,
out you can handle Thaco if you can handle that, and that is definitely true. But you still might not be able to handle the grapple flowchart in some editions of D&D and Pathfinder. Second edition is fine, but there were flowcharts for grapple and some things that were just break my head that they were so complicated. The funny thing is, in almost every game system I've read that has the ability to grapple, even very rules light systems, grapple tends to be like one of the most complicated things in that system. Pathfinder 2 has avoided it because grappling is actually easier to do than counteracting.
Cool. It's pretty simple and nimble. I think it's a sentence.
There you go. It's pretty simple in a lot of the games that I've seen, but just sometimes the games are like really simple, and then the grapple's just like, oh, it's got a little bit to it.
Yeah, it's a little bit watered down. Yeah.
But like Pathfinder 1 and 3.5 had some of like the crazy techiest grapple rules of all.
Did it?
Yeah, people are saying it. They already said it in chat as I was saying that.
You needed the DM screen due to all the tables. Yeah, that's cool. Well, I think I can leave here having a much greater appreciation and knowledge of Pathfinder. I'm thoroughly impressed by the knowledge that you have of the system. That's really cool.
Well, thank you. I mean, I enjoy talking about the systems that I work on and like why we did things in certain ways that may have been surprising to us because of the way that people reacted to things. And I also enjoy hearing from people when they're designing their own systems as well, and hearing from you about some of the terminology and choices that you made in Nimble. It's just a lot of fun geeking out with game designers about game design.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mark, thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
Great chat.
Yeah, it was good to have you, and I hope that everyone who came for the Nerd Baby Range stayed for the design chat. Until next time, everyone, if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat. Take care and have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday, and the Kickstarter will be live by then, I think, for Battlezoo Eldamon Legends. Bye, everyone.